Mic check 1 2. Hey hey, check 1.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Bud Denker, President of Penske Corporation, and it's great to have you all here today on this historic day here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, in the beginning of a new era for the Speedway and for the sport of IndyCar. I appreciate all the distinguished guests that are here today, and also our friends from the media that have joined us here this morning, along with all of those that have joined us also on the conference line. And of course, we can't forget the fans, the members of the racing community that are watching through live stream on IMS and IndyCar.com. A press release detailing today's important announcement is being distributed as we speak and will be available also online, and hard copies available for all you in this room today. Carl Fisher first had the vision to build the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 1909. Some 18 years later, Eddie Rickenbacker purchased the Speedway before Tony Holman and Holman and Company became the owners of the world's most famous racetrack in 1945. The Holman George and the Holman and Company families have been the stewards of this great speedway for 70 years and more. And today, we're excited to announce there will be a fourth owner-operator of this historic venue, this historic, iconic facility that hosts some of the biggest races on the planet, including the Brickyard 400 and, of course, the world's largest motorsport event, the Indianapolis 500-mile race. The board of directors of the Holman and Company have entered into an agreement to be acquired by Penske Corporation. Under the agreement, Penske Entertainment, a subsidiary of Penske Corp, will acquire all the principal assets of Holman and Company, including the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, and the IMS Productions. The acquisition will close following the receipt of applicable government approvals and other standard conditions. Today, we welcome key principals from both Holman and Company and Penske Corporation here to discuss this historic announcement. Tony George, Chairman of Holman and Company, Mark Miles, President and CEO of Holman and Company, and Roger Penske, founder of Penske Corporation. We'll hear from each of our guests this morning, and then we'll open up for questions from the media. So Tony, I'll start with you. This is a very historic day for the Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, IMS Productions, in particular, Holman and Company and your family. Can you provide us some insight on the decision to sell the Holman and Company and its iconic assets, and what led you to Roger Penske and Penske Corporation?
Thank you, Bud, and thank you all for being here. I would like to recognize my family that's down front. All of them are here, but specifically my sister Josie, my sister Kathy, and my sister Nancy, who are on the board of directors, as well as I see Jack Snyder here and John Ackerman, and I don't know if I see any others, but I want to thank them for being here and for their support in this decision. It was an important decision for our family, especially at this time. Over the course of business through the years, we've always looked at strategic opportunities, things we might be able to do to grow and expand our capabilities here. We're a 169, almost 170-year-old business, and we've been in a lot of different businesses during that time. We've been distillers, we've been brewers, we've been grocers, we've been produce, canned goods, just about everything, financials, utilities. But in 1945, in fact, about 2 weeks, 10 days from now, it'll be 74 years since that last transition of stewardship took place, and we're very proud to have come together the last several months, I think, to make some very important decisions. One, about an iconic asset that the family cares very deeply about as well, and that's Clabber Girl baking powder. But now this one is extra special because to all of us, because we've all grown up around it. Nancy and I, anyway, we came home from the hospital to a home just right down the street here. So we've literally grown up around it. our kids and grandkids have done the same. So bittersweet, but very exciting for us because we know that we're passing the torch to an individual who has created an organization that is not only dynamic, but it's ideally suited, I think, to take over this stewardship. A corporation that is family involved, much like ours, but with a track record that is really without compare. So we're very excited to be in a place where, you know, our process took us to a point where we as a family all agreed we needed to have a conversation with Roger Penske. And so I approached him at the final race of the season, not wanting to distract from the task at hand, which was bringing home another championship, but I wanted to wish him well on the grid, and I just simply said that I'd like to meet with him and talk about stewardship. He got a very serious look on his face, and I followed up after he clinched this championship with an email, and then another email the next morning, and we set it up. I invited Mark to join us for that meeting, and you know, kudos to both organizations who worked very closely together, very quickly. It was a pretty easy, not easy by any means, but this isn't their first rodeo, or your first rodeo, so they were able to execute around diligence very quickly, and it led to an announcement that miraculously, not many things are kept under wraps around here, but this was fairly well contained, and we were able to really, I think, present this to the world this morning. So that's kind of the way it came about, and we're just very thankful for the opportunity to be here today and to, you know, work towards this closing. Very excited about welcoming the Penske Corporation, Penske Entertainment as new corporate citizens in the
Tony, we're very thankful to
2020.
be here as well with you today, too, and you and your family. Thank you. Mark, I'll ask you a question now. And, you know, we've seen some great positive growth and momentum from the series over the last several years. Of course, the Indy 500-mile race has seen crowds of 300,000 plus year after year after year, and some great action and competitive nature of what's happening on the Speedway across North America. With today's announcement of the new era that's beginning, how can that momentum continue and move forward in your eyes with the Penske Corporation?
Thanks, Bud. Thanks, everybody, for being here, and thank you, Tony, for all your support over the years and your comments today. I know I speak for everybody. I think we have 260 people or so that work either at the Speedway or IndyCar or IMS Productions, and it's fair to say that every day people understood that whatever progress we were making was based on what had come before us. So before we say anything about the last few years, we just want to recognize that it was really everything that came before us that gave us the opportunity to try to make more progress and to achieve more growth. And I think Tony and perhaps other family members will continue to be involved, so I think that's really important. This is, we will make great progress, because to me this is an absolute hand-in-glove fit. Roger's background in racing and this superb effectiveness of everybody that works in the Penske Corporation is pretty well known to everybody. And as was said, he didn't need a lot of diligence on the history of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway or IndyCar to know us. And so the most important thing, I think, in this transaction, in making these arrangements, was the convergence of really the transition from the phenomenal heritage we come from and the understanding of that with Roger to what is possible going forward. We are very proud of what's happened over the last several years. And many of you are from Indianapolis. You know here that we had this unbelievable opportunity with the 100th running in 2016. I think the community really responded to that. And that gave us the chance to build from there, and so we're still staying at a really good place in terms of attendance and all that in terms of fan engagement here. And we've tried to be innovative in the events we bring here, and I think that will probably continue. IndyCar, we're just so proud of. It's probably been a little bit more of a up and down history over the longer term, but there's no question we have great momentum now. Every fan metric shows growth. We've kept our traditional longtime fans, and we're growing the fan base and adding younger fans all the time. It's without a doubt, in our minds, the best form, most exciting form of racing on the planet. And with Roger and Penske Entertainment as our leaders now, we see nothing but more of that growth. And I don't want to forget IMS Productions. It's a great company that has earned a reputation of being great storytellers. So they create a lot of content, not just for racing, but for other customers as well. And of course, they are the nerve center for the television productions that allows IndyCar racing and everything from the 500 to reach so many people around the world. So the shorter answer to your question is, we have a parent now that appreciates the history of the past, the history and the past, knows our business inside and out, gets things done. I love that Roger has said more often than not that he cares about the talent, the people around him, and how hard they work, how much we can get done. And I know that everybody at the Holman & Company has felt the same way for some time and looks forward to working for you, Roger.
Thank you, Mark, and know that we have your interests in mind in keeping that momentum going, believe us. Roger, to you now. You and your race teams have had an incredible history, a legacy here at Speedway and, of course, in the NTT IndyCar Series. Can you describe what this moment means to you personally and professionally as you sit here today?
Well, I think to everyone that's here today and around the world listening to this iconic event, I really have to wind back to 1951 when my dad brought me here and I was 14 years old. And I guess at that point the bug of motor racing, got in my blood, I'd have to say. And to think about what it's meant to our company, the brand that we've been able to build. It's interesting, I talked to Mario Andretti today and talked to A.J. Foyt. We all agreed that what the Indianapolis 500 has meant to us as individuals and as company, and certainly as our company. And I think that what it really says, that in the United States of America, that if you work hard and you're committed and you have a great group of people, you get great success. So today I hope my dad's looking down at me and looking at this group and say, son, you did a good job. So I've got a big commitment here to take over, certainly as the steward of this great organization and what's been done here in the past for so many decades. And it's my commitment to the Holman family, to the fact that you'd select us as an opportunity to take on this investment. It's amazing. And I just want to thank Tony and everyone else that's been involved in this. Certainly, Mark, you've got a great team. We don't have a gymnasium full of people to bring here. When we buy a business, we look at the people, and the great thing is we've rubbed shoulders with many of the people here over the years, so we've seen this organization grow, and I certainly think that certainly IMS Productions does a great job. What's happened today with the media partners, and there's just no question that we have the opportunity to grow, and the IRL will be one of the greatest series as we go forward. So I'm humbled today to say that, and I want to thank Tony, you again, and the family for this opportunity, and Mark, I look forward to continuing to work with your team in the future.
Thank you, Roger. And before we open up to the questions from the media here in the room, I want to remind those in the telephone, we have a lot of folks, I understand, live on us that will have questions as well, to do star one to get in the queue for your questions. So with that, I'll open it up to an orderly fashion here with the media. If you can state your name and where you're from, and there's a microphone being passed around.
Roger, Chris Woodlick from CBS 4 here in town. Why is this important for you to take over this place, and are there some changes in mind that you'd like to make?
Well, I think we look at businesses that we invest in where we have domain knowledge. And I think the fact that we've been coming to this track for almost 50 years and seen the growth of the series and understand the technology, and it's also a great business opportunity for us to grow it to the next level. And we look around, this 1,000 acres, and we say, can this be the entertainment, really, capital, not only the racing capital of the world, but the entertainment capital of the world in Indiana, and be able to support, the state, the governor, the region, the city, the town of Speedway, and continue to grow it. So, we're going to invest capital. We know the economic benefit today that this race brings to the region is amazing, and we want to grow that. It's important to us.
Fritz Frohmeyer with Vintage Motorsport Magazine. Part of the Speedway is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Nonprofit Foundation and the museum, and what are your plans moving forward with that part of the Speedway?
Well, every time I get to go to the museum and get to see all the wonderful pieces of art there, it's amazing, and I can assure you that as part of our discussion, we're going to support the museum the same way the Holman family has done in the past.
Good morning. This question is for Tony Day First from RTV6 here in Indianapolis. 1945, Tony took over this place. Great history, obviously, with this family. How difficult, ultimately, was this decision for you and the family?
Well, it's obviously emotionally difficult, hence the choking up. But, we all love it and we all care deeply for it. And, I think we all realize that as a family and as an organization, we probably had taken it as far as we can. I think that, Roger's, his structure, his resources, his capabilities that he demonstrates is only going to take this to another level. And so that's what we're all about. We're supporting that, continued, elevating this asset and, staking a new claim on its future. So, we with emotion, are happy to be here today.
Roger, Bob Kravitz with The Athletic. We've talked about the momentum. How do you build on the momentum? What are what's on your wish list for, let's say, the first 30 to 60 days?
Well, I think, what I plan to do tomorrow, ironically, is to walk the entire facility and strategically sit down with the existing team and get their top 10. I always like to work from a top 10 and see the things that we can do to make it fan-friendly. Certainly from a competitive perspective, I'm planning to really step down from being a strategist on the pit box. You won't see me there on race day. I think I've got a bigger job to do now, is to try to see how we can build a series to the next level. It would be nice to bring another car manufacturer in. I know Jay Fry is working on that. Can we have someone else come in to join the series? I think we look at the Speedway itself, the investment with the $100 million or the $100 million that was put in a few years ago before the 100th. I think you've seen a tremendous change, and we want to add capability. Is there more fan zones? What can we use this for? Can we run a 24-hour race here? Can we run a Formula One race here? What are the things that we can do? This is a great asset, and once the tradition had been broken, and adding the NASCAR race, which obviously we're going to get behind that in a big way, because for 27 years they've run here. So I look at all of these across the board to see, what can we do? This business is not broken. This is a great business, and the leadership team that's been here has done an outstanding job, and what we want to do is be a support tool. We bought Michigan Speedway in 1973. It was bankrupt. We built California. We're running the Grand Prix, or helped present the Grand Prix in Detroit. So this is in our DNA, and I think that with input from the media, certainly input from our sponsor partners, and all the teams. I had a chance to talk to most of the teams today, the principals, and we're looking forward to getting together with the car owners and seeing what we can do to make IndyCar even stronger. And I think that's something that would be a priority for me.
Mr. Penske, Eric Berman, WIBC Radio. What can fans expect that'll be different in the 2020 race and then going forward over the long term?
Well, that's an all-encompassing question. Number one, I want to be sure that we're as good as we've been, and I'm going to count on this team here. You remember, I'm going to be the new guy in town, so we're going to take those plans and see if we can add anything to it that makes it better. But I think you don't build a business overnight. This didn't get to 300,000, you know, in 3 or 4 years. So we have to be rational, you know, on our investment. But you know, we're interested in the economic development, you know, in the community. The Hoosiers that support this, you know, all over the state, you know, want to see this become and still be the iconic race of the world. So we're going to do this a step at a time. And I think that we've got here probably the next 60 days. We're hoping to close this very early January based on all the regulatory things we go through. And I think at that time, we'll have had a chance to talk to all the leadership here and get some good input, because you know, this is obviously a chance for us just to add our support and our shoulder to make this better.
As we're passing the mic, let's take a call now from our folks that are online. Let's start with Marshall Pruitt. Marshall from Racer Magazine. Can you hear us, Marshall?
Hopefully so. Congratulations, everyone. Roger, what do you envision in terms of a management structure being put in place? I know you mentioned that you aren't overflowing with personnel so far, but what do you envision as a combined Penske Corporation, IMS IndyCar fusion of management, and how far do you and Mark Miles and company wander down that road?
Well, I think I said it earlier, we have no intention of changing the management teams that are in place today. And certainly we'll have a board which we'll announce at the time of the final closing of the transaction. And we hope to have a diverse group of people on there that know the business and can support the business and take us to the next step. So, you know, that's going to be part of our plan. And we also, just to put it in perspective, you know, we've offered the Holman family members, if they'd like to have an interest in the company, that we will look at that during the now and but we get to the end of the closing.
Marshall, follow-up question also, I understand?
Just another one quickly on looking at the investments needed, Roger. You've always been one who you've never spent freely for the sake of spending. You've always said, show me a business reason to invest, and I'll take that under consideration. Are there areas that you see now, maybe less with IMS, but more the IndyCar series, where you believe some infusion of funding would actually help move the series higher, faster, sooner, something to get it back to some semblance of what it once was?
Well, let's look at TV ratings are up, attendance is up, social media is up. We've got NBC as our partner on not only the network, but you know, also you know, on cable. It couldn't be better. The competition, you know it yourself, coming down to 3 or 4 drivers being able to win the championship at the last race. I think the racing product is excellent, and the fact that we have short ovals, big ovals, the Indy 500, then you have street courses and permanent road courses. I think the venues are well balanced. Look, it'd be great to have another venue here in the U.S. This is a North American sport, including obviously Canada. I think what we have to do is be sure that we can get people that want to invest in the series with us. And to me, the product is good. I think the officiating, Jay Fry, you know, Kyle Novak, certainly Ari Londyke and Max Pappas, you know, from the stewards. That process is the best it's been. So I think what we have to do is maintain our data equity, and through social media and getting the sponsorships. I think when we sit down with the team owners and give them a chance, and we'd be very transparent with them, and we'll let them add, see what they think, how we can add to this sport, because this has got to be done just not by us. It's got to be done as a team effort. And to me, you can't walk in here today and make an announcement like this. We've been wide open here for the last 6 weeks to try to get to this finish line. And I think now what I want to step back with our team and with Mark's team and be able to look at the things that they see, because they've been much closer to it than I am. I can tell you what the garage area looks like and what pit 1 or pit 2 looks like, and I like being in the winner's circle. I do know where that looks like. So that I do know, but I can't tell you that we'll have, I think, as I say, a top 10 by the time we hopefully get to the closing at the end of the year.
We'll go to another question here in the audience, and then we'll go to Bruce Martin online. Next question in the audience.
Mr. Penske, you talked about an investment. Sorry, sir. You talked about an investment. Everybody likes to know details. You want to share the purchase price with us?
Well, you know, we're a private company, and the Holman Company is private. We don't really discuss those at this time.
We'll go to Bruce Martin now on online. NBC Sports.
Yes,
Bruce.
Bruce Martin, NBCSports.com. Just one question for Mr. Penske, one question for Mr. George. Penske Entertainment is going to be a new Corp company that you create. Are you going to be spending more time in Indianapolis, maybe from the Penske Corporation up in Detroit? Or, I mean, how is the logistics of that going to work? And also I have a question for Mr. George as a follow-up.
Well, you can be sure that with an investment like this, that I'll be here other than the month of May for sure.
Bruce, follow-up question.
And for Mr. George, when you think of the Holman family legacy that has existed within the state of Indiana for 150 years or more, and just the historic perspective of what the family has really meant for the state of Indiana, I mean, how can you even begin to put that into perspective?
Well, I can't say that I know for sure, but it's, you know, it's an honor. It's close to 170, and just this past, I don't know, 18 months or so, I had the opportunity, which I never took the time to do before, but that was to read a historical transcript of sorts. It is really a book on the first 100 years of Holman and Company, and that really shed a lot of, that opened my eyes to a lot that I didn't know. Some of my sisters knew some of that lore and whatnot, but I wasn't really familiar with it. So, you know, that's been kind of baking for the last 18 months or so. But, you know, it is somewhat bittersweet, I said, because, you know, the 170-year-old company, as we know it, is coming to an end. But, you know, we're very, very proud. We feel like we're going to continue to be a part of it. You know, everybody who comes here has their own story, and the memories and the accomplishments that make it special for them. So, you know, we're just fortunate that our family and our family business has had a 73-year run of being part of it and being a steward, and we continue to be grateful for the opportunity that we may have going forward, and I, for one, intend to take advantage of it. And we'll be here supporting the events with teams. You know, maybe our little team can expand to, you know, do other things, which we're going to need to do. And so if Roger has a 24-hour race, by George, I think we're going to try and be here. We may have to look at getting into NASCAR too, but you know, those are all things. I think once I think the momentum continues to swell here, you know, I think it's going to raise all boats. So hopefully we'll have that opportunity to continue to be involved and you know, work right alongside Roger and his group and all of the teams and fans and media that come here to enjoy it.
We've got a couple extra NASCAR cars for you too, Tony.
Let's go to
and was Roger?
Let's go to a member of the audience here, and then we'll go to Jenna Fryer from Associated Press.
I'm Brock Brown from the town of Speedway. We live here. We're going to miss you, Tony and family. We've been talking about you for 100 years, so we have to change our conversation now. But Mr. Penske, do you have any message to the town of Speedway in anticipation of us welcoming you with open arms to this area?
Well, you know, obviously, town of Speedway has been very important, surrounded this iconic track for all the entire time it's been here. And what I would say that the growth and the ability to see what's happened there just is just part of what we see the momentum is around the track. So I take my hat off to the city fathers and the people that are there. I, of course, represent Allison in one of our businesses, so I've been coming here a long time. And to see the growth and what's going on just makes me even feel better about the opportunities we have here. So I would say to the citizens and the people that live there and work there that we're excited to be a partner.
Let's go to Jenna Fryer with Associated Press, who's online. Jenna?
Hi, I have a two-part question for Roger. One of the few things that's come up that people are questioning on this is conflict of interest. I noticed you said you're going to step down from the pit stand. How will it work with a team owner running both the Speedway and the series?
Well, I think as you look at the construct as we go forward, you know, the sanctioning body and the IRL will be a separate company, and the other assets will be in the Speedway. And I think with the proper board, and I think you have to ask our competitors at this point, you know, Tony's been a car owner. We were talking about it today. I think Tony has said that all along, you know, Wilbur Shaw, Eddie Rickenbacker have been drivers, so there's been some history. But I don't want to leave this conversation without knowing that I understand the integrity, and there's got to be a bright line. And to me, I know what my job is, and hopefully I've got enough credibility with everyone that we can be sure that that is not a conflict. And I'll do my very best to be sure that isn't. And if you think it is, I know that you folks will tell me pretty quick. So I've got a lot of guys watching me.
And then my second question is, you have been on record as wanting guaranteed spots for IndyCar regulars in the Indy 500, which is the second question that fans are asking. Is that something that you can now implement, or what is the process on rule changes going forward, and where do you stand on that?
I didn't understand the question. Would you repeat it?
Yeah. The second thing that fans are quick to question is your position on guaranteed spots in the Indy 500. Now that you run the race and the series, is that something that you will try to implement?
Well, that's been a discussion, you know, before, and I think that that will be a strategic discussion that will be taken up, you know, with the senior leadership here. I wouldn't make a comment today one way or the other. I think it's really up to Mark and Jay and the team to make that decision. I think some of the excitement's been in the past, the fact that we had people that wanted to come into the race. We also have to understand people who commit to the entire season and take this series around the country, around the world potentially. We need to be sure they're taken care of. So I think it's a debate, but at this point, I wouldn't comment one way or the other.
Let's go to a question from the audience.
Russ McQuaid from Fox 59 for Mark. You've been involved with Indy Sports Corp. You've been involved with the Super Bowl. How do you see this change of ownership and this legendary handover at this iconic site in this race affecting Indianapolis Speedway and the overall sports agenda and world here in central Indiana?
I think the news today has international implications that are very positive, but I think for Hoosiers, people here, it's even more true. So we were involved in the Super Bowl here. Roger chaired the Super Bowl in Detroit. He understands community and the importance of great corporate citizenship. I was talking to Roger a couple nights ago, and he was traveling to raise money for United Way in Michigan. So I know him to be a great corporate citizen. I know their company thinks that way. So it's just their mentality, and I think it can only be a really great thing. I think Tony said to have an additional family as a corporate citizen here in central Indiana. And then to have the resources and the knowledge and the ability to execute that they do will mean that this place will continue to grow and the series will continue to grow. And that can only be a good thing for the city and the state.
Let's go to a call now in line. Jordan Bianchi with The Athletic. Jordan?
Yes, this is a two-part question for Roger. Roger, you talked about having a commitment to NASCAR. Can you go specifically into what that means? And will NASCAR continue to have a date there long-term?
Well, I think you look at 27 years, there's no reason to break that string of races. I had a chance to talk to Jim French late last night to tell him that we were going to have this conference here in the morning. And he obviously was excited. We've worked together. We were partners with the ISC at Homestead. We actually sold our business to them back several years ago. So we have a very close relationship, and certainly, you know, with Jim and with Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell and the entire France family, we would expect to take this for many, many years. They need to run at Indianapolis. We want them to, and there's no question that, you know, we're going to look at opportunities to expand the relationship with them in the future.
One thing you have talked about that you're in favor of is running a doubleheader weekend, IndyCar and NASCAR running on the same track on the same weekend. Is Indianapolis now a candidate for that to happen?
Well, I think it was interesting to see Newgarden run around what they call the Roval down in Charlotte here, you know, several weeks ago, and it was pretty exciting. I think some of the drivers had never seen a IndyCar on an oval or a racetrack. So, look, those are the things. Sitting down, Tony will give us some his input, and certainly Mark and the team. Are those things we can do? Can we execute those so we bring value here to the Speedway? And look, we got to break some glass on some of these things, don't we? We got to try some of this, and you know, I'm prepared to take a risk. You know, no risk, no reward in many cases. So those are the things that, you know, Mark, with you and your team that we'll take a look at. But I wouldn't say it's out of the possibility.
Okay, we're going to take two more questions inside, and then we're going to do two more online. So let's go to the first one here inside. Two more. Go ahead.
Roger, Jake Query with iHeartMedia. Tony had talked about how everyone has their own story here. And I know you know the tradition here is so important to so many people, from the name of the venue to not having lights at the venue to bringing in your own cooler. It goes all the way down the list. How do you balance progress while still being aware of the tradition and the heritage, and how much does that get tweaked moving forward?
Well, I think it's important to know that you know, one of the things that I care most about are the men and women in our armed forces and the first responders that we represent and compliment every Memorial Day. And then having the July 4th race, think about the two of those. You know, we'll continue to support that with our hearts. And certainly from a tradition perspective, you know, there's nothing more, to me, gives me more feeling to stand on the grid and see the flyovers and see the men and women in the services each year. So I can tell you we're going to push harder on that to be sure we respect them. And the tradition and the pomp and ceremony is certainly will be top of mind.
Will you explore night events in terms of racing at this venue?
Well, I think we have to look at is the investments in lights, or is the investments in something else we can do here to make the Speedway and the IRL a going entity which gives us the results we expect.
Let's go to Bob Pottgrass from Fox Sports. Bob?
Yeah, Roger, it's obviously going to take up a lot of your time. So how much less time do you think you'll be able to devote to your NASCAR team and possibly your IndyCar team?
Well, Bob, I don't know if there's many more weekends in 52, but if there are, I'll probably fill them up with some racing opportunities. My wife says I tell her that this is my fishing trip and golf game. My golf game is not good these days anyhow. But look, you know, I spend a lot of time at the tracks. You know, I love it. I want to be there, and I think that's not a knowledge base for me too. So, you know, I'll continue. The good news is that it's a short flight here from Detroit to get to Indianapolis. We know a lot about it, and I think with the communications capability we have today, you know, we can be connected from a business perspective. But from a racing, you know, I'm committed 100% to our team. We've got over 500 people down in Mooresville, where we have all our teams, and with Tim Cindric as our leader. I'll be working with him just as I have in the past.
Let's go to another question here. And just remind everybody, too, these gentlemen will be available afterwards for questions as well. So one more question here internally in the audience.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had given up. Roger Bob Kravitz with The Athletic. You got dropped off here when you were 14 years old, and I wonder what your memories of that day were like, what you saw, what you heard, what you felt.
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting. I'll tell you a little story. My dad worked for a metal warehousing company, and they were a lap sponsor. So he got a couple of tickets, and we were invited to go to a luncheon. And I remember we got here, and we got to the house, and everybody was gone, but out back was if you can believe it, was a show car, front-end roadster, and I sat in and got my picture in it. So that was, one of the things that really maybe started, my interest. Then we came out to the track, obviously, and saw the race. Lee Wallard won that race in 1951. I think I was here every single time until one of the poorer moves we made is when we split from the Speedway and running here for a number of years. But I was here every year since then. So to me, that was my first encounter with the Speedway.
Before we go to David Melcher, I want to also let the audience know there will be a photo op at the Art of Bricks once we complete the interviews up here as well with these three gentlemen, so you all know that. Let's go to David Melcher now with motorsport.com.
Hi guys, congratulations. Mark, I wanted to ask first of all, do you think that Penske, having the Penske Corporation behind this, does that encourage more involvement from be it manufacturers or bigger corporate sponsors who have possibly dealt with Roger in the past and know that he's the guy that gets the job done?
We think so. Roger's relationships and reach globally in a number of sectors, many sectors of industry and sport are remarkable. Some of us have to work really hard to get the right person to pick up the phone. Roger may short circuit that a little bit, not infrequently. So, yeah, I believe Roger will answer our call and have his own thoughts about all parts of how to grow this. But as he already mentioned, having a third OEM is one of our priorities and one of our goals, and I'm sure Team Penske and Roger will help.
So thank you again, gentlemen. Thank you to the media that's come here today and also those online. It's we are so honored, Tony, to be in your house with your family here today. We're so proud to partner with you, Mark, and your team. I know it's a proud day for Roger and his family personally, but it's also a proud day for our 64,000 employees at Penske Corp who are online now watching this live. We're behind you all the way. We're here to support you. We're here to build the momentum you talked about earlier. So thank you very much for a great day. Thank you all.